go! Film Theory! Yeah. What's up, guys? We're gonna watch from Film Theorist, Film Theory, Why Godzilla Wins. Okay, this is a long one. I mean, we did a video of who we thought would win, really went to bat for like very specific why we think Godzilla will win. I can't remember which video it was. I really broke down how I think the fight, including the fight with MechaGodzilla, would go down. And also, we did do a trailer reaction recently that was up on a bunch of trailer sites. This MechaGodzilla and I, we got a copyright strike from Warner Brothers.
Taken down entirely.
Those trailer sites got copyright strikes, other reactors got copyright strikes, so must have been a leaked trailer that other trailer sites were like, screw it, put it up. I'm excited to see what the film theorists have to say, and I'm glad they're already on our side. That's right.
That's right. This is credibility for us.
Your ape's gonna fall.
Your hairy cheeks are gonna get smacked.
But it's gonna be exciting, and I'm still excited to see Kong.
As long as everyone has fun, you know?
Okay, guys, you are never gonna believe this. I know Godzilla vs Kong is coming out in a few weeks, but I managed to get myself an early copy of the movie. Or should I say I managed to find a leaked bootleg copy that someone was willing to sell me on the internet. Huh, alright, looks a little beat up. I thought the title was different. Maybe that was just an early draft. Anyway, let's check this thing out.
Knew it.
Yeah, just odd choice. Feels a bit lo-fi, but maybe they were looking for something different?
Okay, drop it.
I got the dub version.
Yes. Haven't seen the dub.
Oh, this is the original Godzilla vs King Kong. Yep, okay.
Hey, don't knock it.
I love this.
Gotta say, I don't hate it.
I miss popcorn.
Cool.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory, the show that's more fun than a
Hello,
barrel full
Internet.
of giant prehistoric ape-like cryptids. You know, it's been a tough couple of years for Legendary Pictures' big-budget MonsterVerse franchise. After audiences got so annoyed at Godzilla not showing up for more than a few minutes of his own movie
love
back in
that one.
2014,
I do too.
they paid him
I
back by
champion
not
it.
showing up at all for his significantly more exciting sequel, King of the Monsters, in 2019. Boom! Get dunked on, Godzilla. The only thing that's reliably able to take you down is poor box office earnings. Fortunately for Godzilla and Company, though, the studio was already well into production on the next movie at that point. But then World Events shut down theaters, and now only by the grace of our corporate masters at AT&T and Warner Brothers can we finally see Godzilla vs Kong the way any iconic summer blockbuster battle between two 400-foot monsters was meant to be watched, 2.5 inches high on phones. This is a movie that's already raising a bunch of questions. Why are they fighting? When did Kong get so much bigger? Why didn't this happen years ago alongside Civil War and Batman v Superman? Side note, is this whole thing gonna get resolved by both of them knowing someone named Mothra? Mothra! Why did you say that name? But we all know what the big question is in these sorts of movies. Who is gonna win? Well, if you know the channel, you know that we're gonna do our darndest to answer this one early. And if you don't know the channel, consider subscribing for mind-blowing theories each and every week that'll make you look smart in front of all your friends. Now then, let's start answering our question by having a look at both of our competitors.
Yes.
According to the MonsterVerse canon, this incarnation of Godzilla is 393 feet tall, or about 120 meters, not counting the additional 189 feet, or 57.6 meters of his tail. And he
Did not
weighs
know
in at
that.
approximately 99,634 tons, making him unquestionably the largest version of Godzilla ever depicted in live action.
thick boy.
By contrast, Kong was only 104 feet tall.
he was
or
just a
35
baby
meters
in
when
Skull
we last
Island.
saw him in Kong Skull Island, which is pretty big, but only a fourth of Godzilla's size. However, it seems like he's gotten himself a lot bigger, considering that in the new movie's trailer, they stand next to each other on some aircraft carriers, and Kong is at Godzilla's eye level. If
There we
not
go.
even taller. Man, looking at this scene just makes me think the real winner of this battle is any boat able to float while 200,000 ton creatures duke it out on the deck. Now, knowing these rough statistics, we can use science to see which creature is going to pack a bigger punch.
Oh, here we go.
Analyze what Godzilla's heat ray weapon does and doesn't
Science,
destroy, so we can see
bitch.
the temperature estimate. Look at overall differences between the mammalian brain and the reptile brain to see whose strategy is
Oh
gonna
my
win.
God.
Except there's one major problem with all of that. If I'm using science, well, science says that both these creatures would lose because they can't possibly exist in the first place. You know those fun-ruining laws of science that get in the way of, say, explosions in space, or sound in space, or literally everything to do with space? Giant monster movies tend to smack headfirst into all those fun-ruining laws of science, mainly physics problems like the square-cube law. That's the mathematical principle discovered by Galileo in 1638 that says that mass increases at a faster rate than size. Basically, as area squares, mass cubes. And this becomes a problem when you consider that the strength of a muscle or bone is roughly the function of its area, but weight is a function of volume. So let's say you double a monkey's height while keeping it the same shape. You wind up with 4 times the muscle power, moving 8 times the mass. That, as you might imagine, an organism can only scale up a certain amount before all the other forces of physics and thermodynamics cause it to collapse in on itself. Neither Kong nor Godzilla would be able to grow to their respective sizes. If they existed at that size, gravity would break their bones. If their bones were somehow strong enough, gravity would pull the flesh and organs off those bones. If their entire bodies were strong enough, they'd collapse into the earth itself. And even if you negated those issues, it is mathematically inconceivable that Kong would consume enough nutrients and water to sustain himself each and every day. So while I'd love to science my way into an answer for this one, the suspension of disbelief here is so extreme that you need like a wizard or a fairy or some level of literal magic to even approach working this out.
Did you guys know that MatPat was actually one of the original hired screenwriters, but he created too many problems in the writing room when he was trying to logically map out exactly how we got to this point and who could win, and then he brought in science into the equation and was eventually fired for being too difficult to work with.
There goes your screenwriting career, MatPat.
God damn.
They should only be 50 feet tall each. That's not enough.
What would be actually great is if you watch this movie and you're like, oh my god, they factored in science.
I would, and both of them step onto the battlefield and then just implode into a mass of bones and muscle.
These human characters who are apex monarch, who are scientist characters, actually use real science.
Fortunately for us, that's exactly what we have. See, the Japanese kaiju genre, and this monsterverse in particular, has really leaned into the mishmash of atomic age sci-fi, gothic mad science, and straight up folklore to justify the hand-wavium it takes to get onto the stompy. Sure, most of the friends and foes of Godzilla, Gamera, and the rest are supposed to be dinosaurs, mutations, or aliens from outer space, but more than a few are also identified as legendary supernatural creatures, demons, spirits, even literal gods.
All
like
the legends,
Godzilla.
the stories, they're true. They really were the first gods.
In fact, Godzilla gets his name in the original 1954 movie from local legend about a sea monster. So even in his earliest appearance, he's equal parts regional folklore and atomic monster. And that mix has persisted throughout all of his incarnations. The 1990s Japanese reboot series retconned Godzilla's origin to be a normal dinosaur who protected Japanese soldiers stationed on an island in World War II. But he's also a karmic force punishing the men he saved for spending their lives in pursuit of capitalist greed.
Sir, you must leave your office. It's in your way.
If Godzilla only knew how to monetize himself, he'd understand.
If he understood the power of his
My
brand.
entire garrison. But the dinosaurs saved us all. And all of that prosperity I built is now being destroyed by the same dinosaur at this moment.
Happy you guys
There's
went with the
nothing I can
dubbing.
do about it.
Absolutely.
Very ironic, don't you think?
Corporate bastards.
Wow, that is
Burn,
deep
comrade.
for a movie with a guy in a rubber dinosaur suit. Then, a decade later, the movie Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, definitely a mouthful, featured an even scarier magical Godzilla who was made
This
of
is the
dead
sorting
people.
hat.
No, really. In that version, Godzilla is inhabited by the angry souls of everyone who was killed in the Pacific during World War II, and he's come to stomp Japan into rubble as punishment for them joining the war in the first place. Each and every time in these movies, there is science involved.
I hope we get this one.
Is the atomic monster after all. But more so, the stories are resolved via folklore. King Kong is largely the same way. In the original 1933 film, he's a god who demands sacrifices from Skull Island's indigenous people. And again, in the original King Kong vs. Godzilla from 1962,
The unconquerable King Kong, giant gorilla god of this South Seas paradise.
wait, did he just say uncomfortable?
Uncomfortable?
The unconquerable King Kong,
Do you mean incomparable? Uncomfortable just makes it seem like King Kong has a mild case of jock itch. Anyway, time and again, we see these creatures.
I don't like being an ape.
I mean, he probably does have jock
and you
itch.
can't have folklore without the lore bit. And yes, the MonsterVerse makes sure to check that box too.
Kong's god on the island. But the devils live below us.
What are they called?
Skull crawlers. Why?
Sound cool.
It sounds neat.
And this is where we're going to be able to find our answer. In battles between gods, it's not a question of science, it's a question of religion. And it's here that things really start to get weird.
Interesting.
Oh, all right, maybe not that weird. You see,
didn't
Godzilla
think
King
I'd
of
go down
Monsters
this
reveals
path.
that the Monster vs. Godzilla origin is tied very strongly to what's called a singular
Christianity.
civilization.
Singular.
Basically, the idea that prior to all of known history, there was an advanced human civilization with a shared language and culture that fell somehow, and whose scattered population subsequently founded all the different human societies that come later. These are your classic legends like Atlantis and the Tower of Babel. And the theory is meant to explain how societies that never met somehow have weird similarities, like why all the old-timey cultures were so into building pyramids, why the same monsters exist in the mythology of all corners of the earth, and why every culture somehow inexplicably loves Minecraft.
Looks Egyptian or Roman. No, this is something different. This is way older.
Now, no legitimate historian really takes this theory seriously, but it's treated as real in this latest incarnation of the MonsterVerse.
I already think, how far are we? 9 minutes and 21 seconds. More thought has been put into the science and philosophy of Godzilla vs. Kong than any of what's gonna be in the actual movie that we get. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm just saying it seems like it's the Bible of all this is so much more intricate here than I think will be put on display in the actual movie. We'll probably get like a few lines at most.
This is making a compelling case for swapping out the human characters and just putting in map paths.
This is making a compelling case for making a television series.
And one of the hallmarks of this theory is that many ancient religions have a common theme of the new gods sweeping in to overthrow the old and ugly false gods that came before, like Zeus and the Olympians defeating the Titans, or the Viking gods against the frost giants. In fact, even some ancient versions of the book of Genesis describe Noah's flood as happening to destroy half-human, half-angel giants called Nephilim, who tried to usurp the Hebrew god. These proto-civilization
When's that
ideas
movie
also
coming?
tend to come bundled with hollow earth theories, in which the old gods or losing civilization is then forced to retreat underground. Now, in the movies, the character Dr. Searzawa has a film theory of his own based on all of this. It's not just a cute nickname. Godzilla and all his big buddies are literally the Titans, as in the original true gods of this fallen proto-civilization.
Yes.
And since he is a very serious scientist with a very, very silly theory in a Godzilla movie, he turns out to be exactly right.
These are not monsters. They are animals rising to reclaim a world that was once theirs.
But wait, if Godzilla is a Titan, and Titans are the old gods who generally lose and get driven underground in all the creation myths, and Kong is also a god by his people, and he lives on the surface, and his main, possibly only job on Skull Island was beating up lizards that come up from the underground, then Godzilla vs. Kong isn't just a title fight, it's a rematch. And the movie seems to back this up. The first post-credit scene in King of the Monsters implies that this fight has happened before, and the trailer for the new movie features a lot of talk about a war in the past tense.
The myths are real. There was a war.
Given everything that we just talked about, we know who won the battle the first time. Kong. He's the one on the surface. He's the one retrieving his former battle axe. In short, he has beaten Godzilla before. So Godzilla is coming into this thing with a loss already on the board. Does that thereby mean that Kong is the favorite to win? Well, yeah, actually. It fits with the mythology, and it fits narratively given the fact that Godzilla just had a massive victory in King of the Monsters.
Okay, you know, I'm liking this so far because the trailers have been pitching Kong as the underdog, even though I feel like Godzilla is going to win ultimately. They've been pitching Kong as the underdog. In the story itself, if Kong actually has won before, because a lot of the theories have actually been that older generations of Godzilla and older generations of Kong are the ones that have duked it out. But if Kong has already won before this iteration, then that will make Godzilla the underdog in this situation.
And then we can get flashbacks to a fight where they were much tinier.
Where they were best friends in the schoolyard.
Yeah, and then a little, misunderstanding caused them to have an
But then
all-out
all the other apes were like, don't hang out with him, he's a freak lizard.
He thinks totally different than us.
He is due for a loss. But I think our biggest proof for what's actually going to happen in this movie comes from the original King Kong vs. Godzilla from back in 1962. You see, friends, it's easy to overlook amidst all the urban destruction, but these sorts of crossover movies are like the hype house of cinema. They get a bunch of loud monsters together for a collab so that they can all get more popular. And this was true in that first movie. Back in 1962, Kong was the much more well-known and popular monster. Godzilla had only appeared in 2 movies before that.
Damn,
Number 2 hadn't
we're
been
at a
nearly
part
as
where
well
we know
received as
about
the
stuff.
first. In fact, King Kong vs. Godzilla only happened because a super shady Hollywood producer borrowed an incomplete production concept called King Kong vs. Frankenstein, and then ran off to Japan to produce a different, unapproved version using Godzilla instead of Frank. By the time the studios back in the US who actually owned Kong caught wind of this and took him back, King Kong vs. Godzilla was already a gigantic worldwide hit, and Godzilla had become
Oh, wow.
the company Toho cranking out Godzilla sequels and has never really stopped since. But in the movie, neither one actually loses. Godzilla kinda loses because he disappears and Kong is the one seen swimming off into the sunset, but neither one is officially a loser here. And
The director did say, director or the president of Toho, one of them.
Yeah, I think it was the president of Toho.
Yeah, did say that Kong was the winner in that movie. Flat out said it. Do your research.
Yeah, Matt Powell gives.
Your team is lazy.
You guys suck.
The editing and the researching, my God.
We need to spend a little less time editing, a little more time reading.
Watch, right when we hit play, it's going to be like, even though the president of Toho did say it, damn it.
And you see, friends, that is where this whole thing starts coming together. You see, the real win for the studio here isn't about who wins, it's that neither monster loses. Losing implies that one fan base is right and one fan base is wrong. One set of merch is cooler than the other. One franchise continues on successfully while the other kind of dies because it lost in the last one. And the way you avoid that situation is to split the difference. You introduce a third-party villain so the warring factions can team up, or just render the verdict muddy enough that no one knows who actually won or lost. I mean, I was joking about it before, but Batman v Superman couldn't wait to tell you that Doomsday was the real big bad in that movie. And Superman doesn't die by Batman's hand, he does it to himself in a heroic sacrifice for mankind.
He still loses the fight.
That Zemo was manipulating them all the whole time, causing everyone to forget that the Civil War between Captain America and Iron Man didn't really have a clear-cut winner. Even Twilight denied its fans a decisive team
Whoa.
Well, I mean,
Captain America Captain America won the fight. The fight between them, Captain America won. And in Batman v Superman, Batman won that fight.
Absolutely.
It's pretty clear who won the fights in those.
Even Twilight denied its fans a decisive Team Edward versus Team Jacob showdown in favor of them teaming up against a new challenger, the evil Vampire Legion, which ended up being all a dream anyway.
That was the best one.
Twist ending ever, I guess. And of course, the real villain of The Ring versus The Grudge turned out to be whoever decided we needed The Ring versus The Grudge. But seriously, neither one wins out in that case either. They also join forces. This also would coincide with the lore for the movies. It's easy to overlook, but technically both monsters are heroes. Kong protects our heroes on Skull Island. Godzilla protects the world from all the awakened titans. They are both good guys here. Heck, there's even this line about Godzilla in King of the Monsters.
He fought for us, died for us. He's not only proof that coexistence is possible.
Exactly.
He is the key to it.
So one losing here just doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, here's my real prediction. In the trailer for Godzilla vs. Kong, we hear this line.
Godzilla's out there and he's hurting people and we don't know why.
Which implies that he's been behaving himself since last time, and now something weird is happening. Well, in traditional Godzilla movie lore, if Godzilla ain't acting like himself, it's because he's not himself. That's right, we have ourselves a new challenger in the ring, and his name is MechaGodzilla.
I don't think they listen to the
to the
filmmakers.
Multiple different eras of the franchise, almost always as either a remote-controlled or piloted fighting robot, and always as one of the real Godzilla's deadliest opponents. And while he's usually pretty hard to miss, being all hundreds of feet tall and shiny, in his first appearance in 1974's Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla, he spends the first half of the film wearing fake skin to disguise himself as the real thing. So could it be that in some, or even all of the scenes that we've seen in the trailer thus far, we're getting misdirected corrected, and Kong is actually fighting a giant robot wearing a Godzilla suit. Well, a lot of eagle-eyed monster fans have noticed some tiny spots in the trailer. Notice the Godzilla-shaped creature on the computer monitor, but definitely a robot back there. This head in the building rubble, where they think they can see Godzilla's mechanical doppelganger hiding in plain sight. And while we haven't seen giant mecha in the MonsterVerse yet, we have seen both Monarch and Alan Jonah, the eco-terrorist baddie throughout the MonsterVerse, collecting Titan body parts as plot points. Monarch's secret base had a Muto skull built into its centerpiece, and a post-credit scene in King of the Monsters featured Jonah collecting King Ghidorah's severed head. Why would that matter? Well, recently unembargoed set reports have described that head as being a prop in the new film, but now, quote, fused with technology. And historically, both MechaGhidorah and MechaGodzilla have been depicted as human-piloted cyborgs built out of the bodies of deceased kaiju. This would allow us to see Kong battle a Godzilla, team up with the real Godzilla, and leave both of these monster heroes as winners to continue their franchises as victors. Now that is what I would call a twist. So there you have it, folks. Kong and Godzilla will meet, and you will see the
he acknowledged the filmmakers thing.
Exactly in the
But
way we thought.
they said,
maybe,
like,
if we're
MechaGodzilla
right,
is driving
then we'll
Godzilla
see
crazy or
Mecha
whatever.
Kong
Yeah.
2? All right, maybe not. That one's just silly. But
Oh my
hey,
God,
that's
if we could
just
get
a
Mecha Kong,
theory.
Mecha
A
Kong
film
next, please.
theory. And remember to atomic breath that subscribe button, my friends. Like I said before, this is the channel that gives you a lot of cool stuff to talk about when it comes to movies, TV, and YouTube with all your friends. So be the first on your block to come up with these theories, find new shows or movies that might be interesting for you to watch. So across the board, it is a kaiju-sized good decision to subscribe to this channel. And by the way, if you missed my first Kong Skull Island theory where I did predict all this Hollow Earth stuff, that one is on screen right now. Totally called it. I'll see you all next week.
Nice. Great job.
Appreciate you.
I mean, as always, I really like the video a lot. Love it. And the script is hilarious. The theories are solid.
Science.
Science, the editing, the
history.
religious philosophy. All great. I do think, though, that its ending moments are kind of already disproved, though, with the recent interview that came out on comicbook.com from the filmmakers who pretty much made it clear MechaGodzilla is a separate entity, that there will be Godzilla, real Godzilla versus the real Kong. They have MechaGodzilla built by Apex with King Ghidorah's head, so all that is true. But this whole thing with Godzilla in disguise, Kong thinks he's fighting the real Godzilla, but he's really fighting MechaGodzilla.
Yeah.
That's already been disproved, hasn't it?
It seems like, I mean, unless they choose to incorporate that plot element in a slightly different way, but the sense I got from that quote was that, yeah, MechaGodzilla will be a well-established outside force in some degree, not so much a big reveal like, oh, damn. Because I feel like at that point, if he was going to be Godzilla under, or MechaGodzilla under his skin, they would want to deflect from that as much as possible, you know?
Yeah, so I think that's already been disproved by the filmmakers themselves. You know, there are things that we brought up in our previous videos that you guys can go watch. I'm sure I'll link them, like how with the short, super summary version, you know, Toho said that Kong won in the first King Kong vs. Godzilla movie. Nowadays, if Toho wants to continue their partnership with Legendary Pictures and to keep the Godzilla franchise alive, and especially with who Godzilla is now, at the time when Godzilla was viewed as primarily a villain, now he's much more glorified. I don't think Toho would let Godzilla be the loser in the fight here. And I feel like that's one of the main reasons why. On top of that, there's also like physicality things. Godzilla survives like nuclear. They literally nuked him in the last, like twice they nuked him, you know?
Yeah. Plus, I mean, I could imagine this setting up franchise possibilities where it's like you have Godzilla on main Earth, you have Kong do stuff in the Hollow Earth, and there you go. You got parallel worlds that can cross over whenever you want.
With the fight between Godzilla and Kong, I think Godzilla will win the fight, and I think MechaGodzilla will show up, and then Godzilla might get like knocked down by MechaGodzilla, and then Kong will step in and take down MechaGodzilla.
Yeah.
And then
that's how Kong gets a victory instead.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, we cool now, dog. That's where I think it's gonna go. That's just my personal theory, but you guys can watch those other videos. Other than that, you know, I like the idea of honing in a little bit more on the philosophical side and the religious aspect to it. That's something that hasn't really been brought up that much. It is in there with the Serizawa Ken Watanabe character. It's brought up a lot in there, and through some other characters in the lore as well. And they also do explain in Kong Skull Island, John C. Reilly has a line in there that says that he's still, I forget what he says, something that implies that he's still young and he's still growing. As it stands, you know, at the end of the day, it all goes to support what I want.
That's right. All goes back to Team Godzilla.
And I definitely learned a lot about additional Godzilla lore as well.
Oh, yeah. and a good amount about the real natural world.
Yeah, damn. All right, guys. Well, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to Film Theory. Leave your thoughts down below. Subscribe to us. We'll be sure to cover more Godzilla vs. Kong down the road. Last but not least,
Daniel the Gallagher, I hope you're doing well over in Scotland. You know what this world needs, though, is if there was a monster attack, I would want you to be the protagonist in that movie. If we were in a kaiju world, think of it. Well-meaning pharmacist Daniel Gallagher forced to rely upon. How could you do it? By being a medic. Instead of being some kind of military guy with a bunch of action skills, kicking ass, we've seen that a million times before, you could be a character out in the streets helping heal people after the destruction that these badass monsters inevitably cause.
if they're insured.
Yeah, if you're not insured, you gotta check everyone's insurance on the streets before you start tending to them, because, you know, money is still the most important part of the ecosystem, like we discussed in the video with Godzilla and branding and whatnot. So make sure.
Pharmacist and Scottish. That's all we got on
Absolutely.
you, apparently.
Yep. Much love, buddy.